have this. See if anybody comes in. Well, I guess I'm right popular. You're a wanted man. There you are, Ocean. You're it. It's you and me. You and me. Hi, Ocean. I will talk with you guys about anything. The demand on that interview, it was supposed to be 45 minutes. He won an hour, and it couldn't go longer, so I had to hang up. That's on my list to do. I got all worried about how to do this technology today, and it's still kind of screwed up. But it was great, thanks to Busy Brands. But I'll look. What's any chance of getting him? Maybe, but I think he had a big win, and he might be going live. He might be going, who knows? Maybe he's going to go on one of the other YouTube channels. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to have him on. ESK, I think, I just want to say a couple of things. One is, I don't think CEOs always and lawyers always have my perspective on what's going on in the markets. I get this company line that, and lawyers will say it, NASDAQ will say it, the numbers, you can't just add them up day by day. Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to go to this picture again. I don't know. Well, let me take this comment down first, and then go back to this picture. Here it is. Look at this. I don't know if you can see my little arrow, but down on the bottom, positively, this MACD is turning positive. Then you've got what I think, to me anyway, the way markets used to trade. This is a huge signal to buy. I think 450 is next. And then if it breaks through that, this number here, is that, I can't tell if that's an 8 or a 9 because of my eyesight. Call it $8, 8.13. But then this allures 10.23. But I don't think there's really resistance on the way up that's real, because I don't think there's anybody that's going to sell who has real shares. All right, I'll take that off. But anyway, this idea that let me go put the comments back. This idea that the numbers are not reflective of criminal counterfeiting. I just call your attention to the SEC filing against Hal D. Mintz. I can go to almost any page right in the beginning. For example, just on the second page, defendants should have marked sales as short. Failing to mark sales correctly was a violation. They failed to comply with the locate requirements of Regulation Show. Marked and sold shares short when they knew, right here, or were reckless in not knowing that they had not borrowed or located the shares. I disagree with Brent's assessment, because how although I respectfully, I understand that what the criminals do is say, well, you can't prove that. Well, the evidence is here. This is circumstantial evidence. How did they sell from the first week in November when shares weren't even delivered to our accounts until, and not all, until 2 weeks later? Who sold here? That's all counterfeit. That's not algorithm. Well, maybe they used algorithms, but this is all criminal selling. It's all fraud. But I think they're going to get their comeuppance here. Anyway, that's one thing I wanted to say to you. And I've already forgotten the second thing I wanted to say. I've already forgotten the second thing. I forgot it. It was on that topic. Oh, I do think, I don't know if this is what I was going to say, but I do think that buyers are going to come in. I do believe that we're going to cross the threshold where real shorts, not to say the criminals, are going to have to cover. And I think this stock could have a run to those numbers I showed you, but it could snap back to $20, $30 in a, I'm not calling for a, massive short covering, but it could go 30, 40, 50, $60 as these people scramble. That's my opinion. Well, Ben, yeah, but I think he's been CEO, and he sees what's called the NOBO list, the no objection list. This is what most of us sign when we open an account, and that just says we don't object to having our position disclosed. And he probably looks at it, and he looks at what's at the DTCC, looks at that, and says, well, it's really not that far off. My point of view is that why would the criminals open an account with their prime broker and sign the NOBO list? They wouldn't. And most of those trades aren't going to show up, in my opinion, on the NOBO list. And we've seen example after example after example. But he's not the only CEO who I think was fooled by the Neo exchange. I think he was fooled by Ionic. I don't think it was his fault. I think somebody in ASPA working with these two hedge funds opened this up to the criminals. And I don't know where the chain is, but you can see the evidence it happened. But remember, he's a CEO. He's now on the NASDAQ. He needs to build these relationships. There are good bankers out there. There are honest people on Wall Street. So I think he's careful with his words, but he's upset. And I don't think, look, he's put his money where his mouth is. He made himself available here. My own view is you're going to see news soon, either on a change in management or a vision statement, or both. Further, and I probed him, but I don't think he can comment, and I could be wrong. I think there's going to be a short-term friendly financing that bridges the time that it takes to get these, the term we used to call it was roll up, where you took a disparate group of companies in the same industry and where they were all kind of having a hard time fending for themselves. When they were agglomerated, all of a sudden there was a huge value, and they were off to the races. I think that's coming. And obviously, Brent can't talk about it. But what the criminals try to do, two things they try to do, which goes to your point, one of them, Ben. They look, the evidence, I just showed you the chart. The evidence is there, what they do, but they focus on one narrow thing. Well, the numbers that you're seeing at FINRA, they don't, like Brent just said, they don't add in all this. Well, why not? If FINRA can give us those numbers, why don't they give us the totality? I think it's because they're hiding this problem. We know it from MMTLP. I think we know it from Finger and GTII, but we know it from all these stocks. CNLV, these stocks all got crushed. CRTD, Vocal. I mean, the list. How is it that at Lin Partners, every company they finance gets destroyed? I mean, the evidence is there. It's as plain as the big schnoz on my face. My mother used to joke, "How do you know you're Italian?" And I said, "I don't know." She said, "Because you got a Roman nose." I said, "Oh, yeah, it's Roman all over your face." Anyway, I think he's fully aware of what short selling is. I don't think he can talk about it in a public forum. And I don't think he can afford to upset bankers. Most of Wall Street doesn't accept what's going on, but it's there. It's there. I think the key, Ben, is going to be as the stock price goes back up, the buying algorithms will swamp the sellers. And these guys are going to be caught out by their short hairs. It's probably a good swing trade. And look at it this way. Somebody said they lost a lot of money. And by the way, I own the stock. I bought it higher. I bought Logic. I bought CAUD. And, such is life, as my dad used to say. But if you bought, I don't know. I paid 70 cents. I paid 40 cents. I paid 38 cents. I paid 33 cents. I paid 25 cents. I paid 20 cents. I paid 16 cents. I think I even got something off in the 15-cent range. And I paid 18, 19. So I don't know what my average is. I could tell you, but it would take so long. But I'm going to guess my average is in the 20s. Let's call it 25 cents. Well, it's not thrilling, but this thing is selling at 14 cents now. So I'm losing money, but it's not like Vocal where it's a complete wipeout I like the guy. I just think it's funny that a CEO would actually, that's some integrity, by the way, that he has. But he actually worked against his own share price. Who backpedaled? Am I backpedaling? I don't think I am, but because just to state it, I think a short squeeze, but I think it's a miniature one. From $1.67, I think the stock could go back to 38 in a spike, or 50 or 60. But I'm not calling for it to run above 100. But I think you could see a blow-off rally while the shorts are covering, the real shorts, even the criminal shorts, as buying comes in. There's only 1 million, maybe 1.3 million in the float. And I don't agree. I don't know. I just don't agree. I think there's 25, 30 million shares that were sold without a locate, and you're supposed to borrow those shares in writing before you sell. Obviously, they didn't do it. And the idea that they're buying it back and selling, that's fraud too. If you sell stock intraday, that you haven't located because you're a big client and then you buy it back at a profit. They don't let us do that. Try going to your broker and buying a bunch of shares without money. When it runs up, selling it. They'll freeze your account. So it's criminal. But I can't, I'll try to have a conversation about that off. Well, there you go. Ocean is a deep sea of wisdom, depth of wisdom, fathoms of wisdom. The U.S. markets are completely corrupt. I also don't believe the NASDAQ market is exempt from the corruption. See, a lot of us, Brent started in the business. He was the youngest guy ever hired at Bear Stearns when he started. I also started very young at Merrill Lynch, and very young. I was a different person. I had hair. I had a future. I had prospects. But anyway, he started it just a few years after I did. We remember how it used to be. NASDAQ used to be creme de la creme. You made it. But NASDAQ's just another albatross. First they send the poor animals to get shorn, get all their wool sent off for sweaters, and then they go up another ramp, and the next thing you hear the screaming as they're hanging upside down from their hind legs, and then their necks are sliced, and then they're gutted and they become lamb chops. That's what I think of the over-the-counter markets and NASDAQ. Ham would say, and New York Stock Exchange. But the difference, I think, with the New York Stock Exchange and part of the NASDAQ is you've got big boys and girls in there on the other side with their algorithms, with their research, fighting the criminals because they want to own the stock. But you don't have that. And so anyway, I agree with Ocean Sailing. I don't think he can talk about it. See, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a commentator. I'm giving you my opinion. I'm no longer a registered rep on Wall Street at a firm. So if I were in my old office, I'd be talking to you from Morgan Stanley. And that's where friends of mine are. But I couldn't talk because my last title, I think, was first vice president or something. I'd probably be an MD. I don't know what I'd be, assuming I kept my production up, and I think I would have. But I wouldn't be able to talk because as an employee, either an employee or an associate of Morgan Stanley, which I'm not now, I wouldn't be able to talk. And I don't think a CEO is free to talk and express things the way I see them. So anyway, well, Matt K makes a good point. If Brent, here's something that Brent said on this call, Matt, that was intriguing to me. He said being on the board, because he's CEO, but it's clear to me there'll be a new CEO, but he's on the board now of what is a NASDAQ company. He said what word did he use? Anyway, the compliance and the legalities and the legal hoops are much more stringent on NASDAQ. than the over-the-counter market, which I loved hearing because that gives me hope that we can get through this. Remember, Matt, and everybody watching, I think this is a temporary downturn in CAUD. I actually think there's 4 stocks that I'm most interested in buying over the next weeks as there's tax loss selling. Finger, obviously, and remember, we can talk about Finger, but I want to emphasize what I heard about Finger. It sounds like, and maybe it's just because Ham is alive on his $52,000 bet on FSU, whatever that means. It sounds like Finger's going to have news tomorrow or this week that's really significant. So Finger I think would be in my first place because I think and this is not financial advice, just commenting its opinion. But I think Finger is in the category of speculative buy or speculative own. And it's one of my 4 that you should look to add to positions or hold. Something can happen. My second favorite is CAUD. I think that's, you might say high risk buy, but I'd say speculative buy, which is slightly better than high risk. Because I think something's going to happen now. I think if you get a new CEO, if the board swings into action, I think if there's some financing, I think if some buyers come in with what, 1.5 million shares in at the most in the float, and some real buyers come in and reduce that, you're going to have short covering that you can't believe. And then on top of that, my opinion, you could see Univest come in as their banker. Maybe not. Maybe it'll be somebody else. Maybe if you look at Elizabeth DeMars's background, she has enormous contacts with money. So I think you're going to see a vision for CAUD 2024 to get to 150 million in revenue run rate, maybe 200 million with high margin business. And you've got this powerful person. You've got others on the board. You can go to their website. In fact, let me just show you that website. Let me take this down. I'll do it quickly because I don't want to. I think I have to go to present, share screen. Okay, share screen, and then I go here, share, and all right, we're just gonna quickly go through this. This is the website. Look up here, collectiveaudience.co. Performance and advertising that drives traffic. I have no idea what this means, but there you got it. There's a young entrepreneur with future customer. Here's a young entrepreneur. And then high converting without the headaches. There's Brent. Listen to this. Once I saw the results, our next generation data-powered platform drove. That's the Data Logic platform with artificial intelligence. I knew there was no going back to the legacy way of volume-based marketing. But look at the board of directors. Christopher Hart, when I click on these, nothing happens. Group CFO at Aubrey Advisors. I'm not a big fan of Aubrey Advisors. So I'll put a question mark, but still, that guy worked so hard on Wall Street. He lost his hair and he's probably got extensive contacts. Nadine Watt Capital Partners CEO. She probably has extensive contacts. Elizabeth DeMars, CEO, independent director and investor. We've already gone through her background, and then Dennis Duncan at PwC, and I think there'll be further additions. Convert your audience, monetize your audience, leverage your data, and there you go. So let's stop sharing. I've got to go back to the studio there. I hope you saw that. Okay, let's talk about that. Let us talk about that, ocean sailing, while you have a cigarette. I don't know if you smoke still, but you said you used to. And I'm just teasing. My sister smokes, but now she does the e-cigarette. Okay, so you're exactly right. When Logic sold Data Logic to Aubrey SPAC, there was nothing left in Logic. Although I just heard today that Logic still owns a little bit, but I think he's talking about our shares. So Logic became a shell. Logic, the company, became a shell. It is obsolete. You're absolutely right. There's no management in Logic, although Brent remains there as CEO. There's no company in Logic. There's no revenue in Logic. The shell. But it is a highly valuable shell. Why? Because it's current in its filings. It's pristine in its filings. It's maintained its relationship with the SEC perfectly. So a company who wants to go public or spin off from a different conglomerate and be public, take a division of a conglomerate and go public, Logic, the shell, is sitting there. Now, Ocean, one of the votes that happened was that there could be a 1 for 35 all the way to a 1 for 50 reverse split. Now, he didn't get into that because I think it's a quiet period. But I know they won't do the reverse split before the announcement, the finalization of an acquirer taking the shell. Now, what you heard today from Brent, 600 million. He said 500 million to 600 million. And he started at 10%. I asked him if it could go to 15%. And he said, yeah, it could. But if we use 10%, let's use 550 million, the midpoint of the two numbers he gave. That's 550 million ocean sailing to us for Logic. Now, the last time I looked at the numbers on OTC Market, I think I saw it. It was 147 million shares outstanding in Logic. And they're not going to issue anymore. So that's, at that level, it's 37 cents. And I think I'm being conservative. What I understand is they're talking to a company that will be worth probably 60 cents a share, give or take, 50, 60, 70 cents. So you still own that ocean sailing, or maybe you sold it. I mean, it's okay if you did. But once Logic is acquired by, let's call it, a $600 million company, which Brent said the ones he's looking at all have revenue. They're all big companies. That company will then effect a reverse split. So maybe it's trading for $25, $50. I don't know. We're speculating what the actual thing will be. But that'll trade maybe not on NASDAQ, but maybe on the New York Stock Exchange. So that's what the shell of Logic is worth. I've raised money for a lot of companies in my life, either directly or as part of a team. And shells that are clean are really valuable. To buy one could cost you 150. It could cost you $5 million to buy one. But the advantage of buying it is that you get shareholders. You immediately qualify for all of the listing requirements. And it's quick. You become a publicly traded company. And if these are big companies, they can be listed on the NYSE or NASDAQ. Sorry, either one, at a price level that institutions can buy. So Logic has actually moved. My screen is freezing. Ocean sailing, I was saying, finger first, CAUD second, CAUD second. And then I like HNRC, and I like Logic now because from other sources, not Brent, I used to think it would take 90 days or 120 days to work out this reverse merger. I think it could happen in December that it's announced. That's speculation. I didn't hear it from Brent. I heard it from others who I don't know where they get their ideas from. So I think Logic's a worthy January first quarter rally type thing. Buy it at 2 cents, 3 cents. And if it goes to 15, 20 cents, 25 cents, that's a nice trade. My fourth stock, so those are my stocks: Finger, CAUD, Logic, and HNRC. But I don't want to leave out GTII because I think that might be, if Finger runs GTII, gosh, I'm so sorry. If Finger runs, GTII will run. Oh, it is? I thought FSU won. Oh, he's down. He's down. All right, because my computer is doing all this, I'll get through to the bottom and then I'll by the committee. Oh. So he was still worrying about scores today. Darn it. Hey, Mark, thank you. You don't have to jump into CAUD, Ahmed. You don't have to. Finger and GTII both, I think, are going to have good Januaries, Februaries, Marches. I think Finger could have a good. I'm speculating. I'm extrapolating from things we all heard over the last 2 or 3 months. We know Univest was named in the shelf registration. So I'm just putting 2 and 3 together, but I think it could be a good week for Finger starting tomorrow. So Ahmed, I have no problem with that. That's it. They can get on the stock market without using an investment banker, without a whole lot of legal fees, without spending a year and a half getting SEC approval. Boom, you buy it and you're on it. So that's the demand. Logic, I bought, and Ocean Sailing, I bought it for the CAUD distribution. So I added to my position. I think I paid 18 cents, 20 cents range for a nice chunk of shares. But I didn't sell it after. I knew it was going to be under pressure. The reason I didn't sell it is I was worried when HNRC distributed WDHY, there was a record date. I can't remember. I think it was in December, 2 Decembers ago. And then because it was more than 25% of the company, FINRA changed the record date to May or something. So I was just worried that would happen again. So I knew I was going to see a way downward pressure in Logic. But so sorry about my computer. I'm going to upgrade it. I'm really liking HNRC, which I'll talk about. I really like CAUD, but I'm starting to think that Logic at 2, 3, 4 cents, if it goes back to 15 or 20 cents in a rally, that's a really nice trade, even if I have to wait to February for it. So anyway, I'm thinking about it. I probably won't. And I think I believe you, William. I'll look into that. I'll look into being there. Wanda Group. Iwanda. All right, go walk the dogs. I walked mine. Yeah, Kathy. That's what I mean. But when I talk, I have to use words like if or could. I have to do that. Well, Logic, Scott. Logic is different than CAUD. This chart on CAUD, look how long it traded at $11, just like 1080. And then as soon as they de-SPAC'd, they crushed it. This is criminal. This is fraud. And now I think this move up here shows that, and this right here shows that the stock's going up. This is CAUD. But this is the distribution from Logic. So yes, this, I just did the arithmetic. This is like 14 cents a share if you adjust it from buying Logic stock. So this, it was much higher, but even at this level, it's 14 cents. Now Logic, which you still own, I don't remember where it closed. I think 3.7 or something. 3 or 4 cents a share. Scott, I was telling everyone over the last 2 or 3 weeks that I thought Logic would have more sell-off before the end of the year, because I thought that they had moved on from the company that they had been working with to acquire the shell. And I know they moved on from that company because they have 2 or 3 better. And you heard Brent tell you tonight that he can say that the candidates that they've been looking at all these months are big companies. So I assume that would be another 90 days, 120 days. What I'm hearing, Scott, and I emphasize, I haven't heard it from the company. I haven't heard inside information. I'm just hearing speculation and it makes sense to me, that because they've been working with it's like interviewing candidates. They've been interviewing these acquirers over the last several months. I'm just hearing that it could happen in December. There could be an announcement in December rather than January, February, March. So I think Logic at 3 cents, 4 cents, particularly if it went lower, they want to drive it lower. Yes, I think it's a thing. Would it be something to hold forever? I don't have that information. But if the company that acquires the shell is bigger than the last one that was rumored to be worth 60 cents, 40, 50, 60 cents a share on the much increased, the shares went from 60 million to 150 million, but worth to each of us 40, 50, or 60 cents a share. And apparently they're looking at better deals. So let's assume 50, 60 cents a share. I think that makes the stock go up once that gets announced. So yeah, I think it's a thing. I think it's a trade. Brent was talking about CAUD. That's this chart. CAUD, which was $11. Actually, here it was 38. NASDAQ stopped trading. Somehow the criminals found stock to trade that didn't exist, and they drove it down to under $2. It's rallying. Brent thinks this can get back to the $10 or $11 price. But even if it goes to 5 or 6 or 7, that's a nice trade. But on Logic, I just described it to you. I don't know the answer. I think shorts have to cover, right? But guys like me, I paid roughly anywhere from 18. Let's say my average is 25 cents. I don't know. I'll look it up for the next time we talk. But let's say my average is 25 cents. Well, if the stock goes to 25 and I already own my CAUD, maybe I sell. Or maybe I wait for 40 cents. Or maybe the short covering makes it go to 70 cents, $1.20. I don't know. The answer is I don't really know. It could very well reach 40 cents. But the criminals will be shorting it and trying to busticate the trade. You know everything that goes on. But yeah, Crossbones, let me finish by answering it. Brent made it clear that the companies he's looking at are in the $500 to $600 million range. And he started with a 10% ownership for all of us of those companies. I asked him if it could go to 15%, and he said it would. But at 10%, I came up with 40 cents. Yeah, I came up with 40 cents. Yeah, Ralph, I still own mine too. And looking at it, I'm thinking, darn it, maybe I should have sold it and bought it back lower, but I already gave you my rationale for not selling. I didn't want, if FINRA came in and changed the record date, I didn't want to miss out on CAUD. So I didn't use any tax loss strategy on my Logic shares. But I really think, Ralph, and I maybe do a separate video. I'll do a separate video, but just to repeat myself, I think Finger's the number one stock to own for December. I think CAUD comes in second. And I'm not saying GTI, it isn't going to, if Finger runs GTI, it's going to run. And there could be news on GTI at any second. I'm just making up my list from our list of crushed stocks. All of them are worth buying in December. Vocals, CLNV, MMAT might even be worth buying in the last week of December for a trade to get out of. But anyway, so I made a list. Number one, Finger. Number two, CAUD. Number three, I'm leaning toward Logic. Number four, HNRC. And number five, GTII. But I might expand that list. And just because I put them in a list doesn't mean they're very far from each other. They're all very close. Yeah, I know Bitcoin went to 39,000. I was in London when it was $1, under $1. And I studied it. There was nobody I could talk to. Max Kaiser was talking about it. And I couldn't figure out how to find a wallet. So I bought silver, and I bought a silver company. And I bought, I think, one other thing. And I thought to myself, I can always come back to it later. Well, boy, if I just put a fraction of what I put 75 grand in this company. I put 170 grand in, or maybe 180 in silver. If I just taken 20 grand, 25 grand, 10 grand and bought Bitcoin. But Dadif, I think what's happening, I listened to a guy I trust. I do think the stock market's going to have a year-end rally, and I think it's going to be explosive. I think it's manipulated. I think it's the S&P 6 or the seven sisters, whatever they call it, and it's manipulated. But I think we're going to have a year-end rally. The other day, someone asked me what's going to happen to the dollar. And I said it's a coin flip. I picked up in the near term. But what happened afterward this weekend, which I think is the scariest thing for all of us, is the UAE is pricing oil in local currencies. That's a sea change. That is a sea change. That means that's just a sea change. And then the other thing, I don't want to talk about because there's so many tripwires. But I think the United States, and for that matter, Israel, are going to lose big time in the ultimate effect of what goes on in the Middle East. And if it expands, you could see oil prices just change our lives. And anyway, the other thing, Denise, that I heard tonight, which I have to confirm, is that in 2020, there was something, and I have to look it up myself, but I trust this gentleman. There's something around $4 trillion, for a little over $4 trillion in M1. M1. Now it's 18 trillion. So in the span of 2 or 3 years, we've gone from 4 trillion to over 18 trillion. M2, he said, was either 22 trillion or 25 trillion up. I forget up from what. But to get inflation down, his view was you've got to bring M1 maybe to 5 or 6 trillion, and you've got to get that M2 down to I think he said 17 trillion. I'll try to follow up on that. But anyway, I think what's happened is inflation is going to be massive in the future. But the reason BTC broke 40 is that people believe the absolute idiocy coming out of the Federal Reserve and the bond markets that the Fed has stopped raising rates. The Fed has a Hobbesian choice. Do we let the dollar and the bond market collapse, or do we raise rates? I think we're coming to an end of this what do they call it? The new monetary system. That's why the markets are so laxly enforced. That's why the Pentagon is so laxly overseeing the budget. That's why taxes are kind of look the other way. Because modern monetary theory, as Dick Cheney once said, deficits don't matter. Well, of course they matter. Of course they matter. And I think we're in the end game. But first, a little chi-chi. The stock market's going higher. All assets are going to go higher. And I just don't see how the Fed can lower rates. But if they do lower rates, say sayonara to the United States dollar. Say sayonara. I am sailing, always sailing, far away across the sea. I am sailing, always sailing. Endless sailing to be free. I'd have to look into that, Mark, but I don't know what to say about airlines. They seem to always be full now. I checked my passport before this trip. I've gone from gold to my cards to who are you? I haven't traveled that much in the last couple of years, but I think oil prices are going massively higher. I think we're going into a recession. I think people are going to have a hard time paying their bills. I wouldn't want to own an airline. And I don't know if you're noticing it, and I have to be careful how I say it, but pilots are having adverse effects in the cockpits. I don't know. I don't think I'd want to own airline shares. Yeah, tomorrow, Ocean, I'm gonna look and see. I just changed my tune on the time frame from Logic literally over the last 3 days. And I'm going to look to see if I can add to my position. I've got enough to benefit, but let me just put it this way. If they were to announce that there is a reverse merger happening, and, you know, I'll just make up an absurd example. Let's say, I don't know. Let's say a division of, let's say Fidelity is a private company. So you see how absurd it is. But say Fidelity is going to buy the Logic shell so it can go public. And they announce that this month, Logic's going to go a lot higher. And it's worth a trade. Obviously, I just used a completely implausible company. Rates on mortgages, much like the bond market, are being manipulated by the Fed. I hate it because I no longer own my house, but I think property prices actually are going higher. Although when you read around the USA, there's decline in real estate prices. In my area, I think it's going to be cash and people that can just buy the house. I think people are having a hard time getting 7.22%. I mean, that's a pristine credit rating. That's one. Two, the bond market is also being, the last auction, I'm not a bond trader, but my understanding is nobody really showed up. So the Fed was the big buyer. The Fed is the buyer. And that's keeping interest rates down. That's why I think there's going to be a rally in the market. People believe what you're saying, that rates seem to be on a course to drop by year end. And that's entirely possible. But Mark, I'm old enough to remember when the Fed didn't control interest rates. It was only Jimmy Carter's appointment of Paul Volcker who changed that narrative. And then we had a 40-year bull market in bonds. I think these pullbacks in interest rates on mortgages are dead cat bounces in terms of bond prices. And I think mortgage rates are headed back to 10, 11, 12%. But where you could be right, and this is where it's hard to square, if we're going into a recession, if we're going into depression, that implies deflation. That implies asset prices going down and mortgages going down. But I think there's a risk the Fed loses control of the bond market, which means bond prices go down, interest rates go up, and I think 7% mortgages will look cheap. Imagine 2.8% a year ago. 7%. Anyway, we don't know. We don't know. There's my friend Sada Aman. Oh, that's great. That's great. You got, so CAUD, the 1,000 you received, Sada, is only a third of what you ultimately will receive. I asked Brent about the 11 months. He didn't answer. I asked several questions. He couldn't answer. But hey, your intrepid reporter asked the question anyway. But anyway, so that means you still have another 2,000 shares, a little over 2,000 shares coming to you in CAUD, and you have your logic. I still have my logic, and I have my CAUD shares. I didn't sell any of it, and I think CAUD on this chart here, I think the next stop is here, next stop there, next stop there. I think it's gonna, I think the most likely next, I think you'll see it 450. Maybe it pulls back. I don't think there'll be much of a pullback. Once it gets through that, I think $7. Once it gets through there, low eights, 813. Maybe. I don't really see that's a big problem. I really don't see any problem till it gets back to the 10, 11 range. And I think people will sell on the way up. So there might be some pauses, but not much. I think this stock, I think Sada, your CAUD, looking at this chart, and I'm like Brent, I'm not much of a chartist. I think it goes back to 10 to 12 fairly quickly. And if it broke 12, it could go 20, 25, 40. But that would be all some short covering. I don't think you should hold on to this third of your CAUD. If it went to 30 or 40, sell. But I don't think you should hold on to it that long. Go ahead and sell as it goes up, a little bit of it. Sell the 1,000 if it goes to some number. We'll know. I'm not ready to pick for myself. But if it went to 25, I would sell the third I got just now. If it went to 30, for sure. I don't know. I might sell at 7.5, 10, 15, 20. I don't know. I've got to make that decision, Sada. But I think right now, looking at, there's a gap around $25, $26. I'll be very bold and predict that gap gets filled. So, and then the high was $38. I'll be bolder still. If there's covering in this stock, it could go above 38. So I might be tempted to sell my CAUD in the $32 range, but as a GTC order. But that's all speculation. And then I have my logic. Logic, if they do the reverse merger, comes in and it's announced in December, that could go to 20, 25 cents. I think they'll be selling all the way up. I think a lot of people will sell. But if the reverse merger is worth 40, 50, 60 cents a share and it's definitive and it's a real company and there's institutions interested and it's going to list on the NYSE or the NASDAQ, it could go to 40, 50, 60 cents. And it too could have a short-term squeeze. I'm both in that logic and CAUD. I'm not calling for these massive Jupiter squeezes. I'm just talking about, in CAUD, maybe it goes 40, 50, 60, $70. But I'm not saying those are high odds. I'd be happy with 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. And then in logic, maybe it goes to 70, 80, 90 cents or $1.20. I'd be long gone. And if it goes any higher, I'm long gone. But I wouldn't hold all your stock for those numbers. Wow. CLNV. Yeah, I like CLNV, Ralph. It would make, I picked 5 there. I intend to go through the whole stable of stocks which have been crushed. And I like CLNV, Ralph. I like it. I can't I can't rattle off information about it, but it's cheap. I like the industry they're in. It looks like they're fighting back intelligently. So yeah, maybe it'll be number 5 or maybe it'll be number 6. What do I think the big news on Finger tomorrow? I don't know. Pharaoh, on September 11th, the company filed a shelf registration for $300 million, Finger did. And they simultaneously filed I don't know what to call it, a further registration for $25 million of a raise, which could be put into effect at any time. The 300 million couldn't. So 25 million range. It's been October 11th, November 11th range. So it's been September 11th to October 11th, now November 11th, about 60 days. Obviously, they were talking to Univest previously. My guess is that $25 million, because Univest was named in the filing. My guess is it could be that they're going to do a financing of 25 million or so, maybe a little more. I don't know. The question comes because Finger also announced they didn't intend to raise money down here at these prices. So that argues that won't be the news. But if they did it, maybe it would be priced above the market, right? It might be a value somewhere higher. Now, why did they file 300 million? Why did they file the 25 million? Why did they mention Univest? So that brings up questions in my mind that I've discussed with you before, that maybe Univest has a company in its portfolio that they want to merge with Finger, or have, one way or the other, the company buys something of Finger or Finger buys something of that company. I don't know. But that's the way investment bankers think. They've got a $300 million shelf offering. How can we, maybe one of our portfolio companies belongs there. So I see that as a possibility. But that's what I've been saying all along, that it's possible that Finger buys something or is bought, but I think it's more likely that they would buy something. The only other thing I can think of is one of the strategic partners of Finger, like one of the insurance companies, one of the telecoms, with Univest's work, comes in and invests as a joint venture or a partner with Finger and puts money in Finger so they can develop their joint venture projects in China. Now, Brent mentioned that they have an opportunity, Finger does, to expand aggressively outside of China. Remember, they bought the Netflix of Southeast Asia. It could be something along those lines. Maybe there's a Southeast Asian company there that would add to, what was that company called? Jiju Technology, something. The Netflix of Southeast Asia. So anyway, Farrell, to me, if there's huge news, it would be that Univest worked out some sort of funding, whether it's with one of the big telecoms or insurance companies, and there's going to be a merger acquisition candidate going into Finger. That would be exciting. On the other end, it could be, maybe they make an announcement about a contract with the insurance companies, or maybe they make an announcement on Apple Care, or maybe they make an announcement on uh, gosh, the rich, anyway, whatever that is, the rich communication services. The bottom line is, Pharaoh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know if there's going to be anything announced. I'm just extrapolating from the enthusiasm Ham had on Saturday. I could be misreading it. It could just be hopium. I don't know what's wrong with my eyes. I'm going in this eye next week. No, we don't have a new date for our trip, and Ham can't bring a date anyway. He's married, but I have one girl in mind. But no, we don't have a new date. He's working on it. Unfortunately, as we get closer to the Christmas holidays, I'm not going to find a place to put Lucky. So if he goes in the third or fourth week of December, I may have to just say I can't do it. I'd rather go in January at this point, but we'll find out. It's up to him, and I'm footloose and fancy free as long as I can put my dog in a safe place. We could have a December run in GTII. I don't know of any good news in GTII that's, something out of the blue, but I do know all the things they've been working on continue. But West Virginia, when does the FBI arrest whoever sold that stock illegally? When does Alpine go down and they have to cover? When does Trento Mines come to fruition, if it ever does? When does the AI company or that they're working with, when does that come to fruition? I don't know these answers. I personally think that Finger goes first, and then as people feel flush, where are they going to go? They're going to go to GTII. AAOI. Oh, so you're buying and selling? Yeah, I'm not. I admire you for day trading. I admire anyone that day trades. I just spent so much of my life behind a computer screen. I don't fancy it anymore. Sitting and, I once had, what do you call that? Tennis elbow in my elbow. I don't know what it's called. It's typers. Anyway, just from hitting my Quotron or whatever it was called, Bunker Ramo. So anyway, I admire that. Yeah, I don't know, Ocean. I don't know. And okay, I'm sorry. It's a small audience, and I'm gonna end it. I just came in after we had the call simply to try to follow up with any questions. Um, we will have more calls with Brent. I really appreciate Busy Brand's help. Maybe the way to do it in the future is have a space call and a YouTube call rather than having them both together. But it's a learning process. I would say, and I'll try to do videos on these. Let me see. Number 3, that's a tricky one. Yeah, I'll go with it. Um, and I'll go with that gentleman. I reserve my right to change my these are the stocks I would try to focus on going into December, last week of December. I think the prices will be low and you can average down. I'd say 1A is GTII, Finger and GTII. They're tied together. Then I think CAUD now. I think Logic, because of what I just described as a reverse merger, which could be announced this month. That's what I'm hearing, not from the company. And then I want to talk to you about HNRC. And I do like CNLV, although I don't know anything about it. I want to look into MULN, although I'm nervous about their financing. And there's a couple of other companies that everybody's told me about. And Ham gave you 3 or 4 that are running. But anyway, that's my working list right now for buying at the last week of December or buying now for a December rally, but for the January effect. So did they naked short? Well, in retrospect, I think they did do it somewhat, but we had an uptick rule, and I left somewhat after decimalization. So we had the uptick rule, and we also traded in 16ths, 30 seconds, and eighths. So there, it cost. If you shorted and got it wrong, it was expensive. There were trading desks, there were research analysts, there were investment banks. And so small companies, $1 could have research, could have financing, roll ups, as I discussed. So, no, they didn't really. My opinion, Joe, is naked shorting got much, much worse after Reg Show. That's my opinion. But it did happen, but it was isolated. What they used to do, and I think Bear Stearns was a big place that they would do it. You could short stock back then. You had to deliver in 5 days. You would get an automatic extension of 2 days. Beyond that, you had to ask for it. But typically, you could stretch it out to 21 days. Well, what I got wind of, I never was allowed to do it. You could set up an account, a different account at Bear Stearns, and move the whole position over to Bear Stearns. And then that bought you another 21 days, kind of like what they do now. But it was not as widespread at all. And the risk was huge to doing it, because when you a drug company announced approval, it could be up 30 points. But it's all different now. It's all different now. It's all rigged. There's no analysts. There's the Merrill Lynch rule. There's no trading desks. There's no institutional buyers. Retail brokers don't even recommend buying the stock. So, but Joe, one of the opportunities that I'm sensing here as we become more educated, as Ham keeps saying, All it takes is one of these to run, and then we'll pick one company off after the other to our favor. All right. Hey, Busy Brands. Thank you very much, Busy Brands. Thank you. Um, I'm going to call it a night now. And I'd like to ask everyone, if you think about it, to pray for peace. It's not just whose side you're on. The children that are being, anyway, all the innocents, pray for them. But also, we have something to gain by peace. I don't think we have much to gain by war right now. I think we're entering a period in the United States history where the two oceans may not protect us as much as it has in the past. And I'm not necessarily talking about fighting. I'm talking about things like um, uh, moving from the dollar, oil price, embargoes of oil, things like that. So anyway, pray for peace. I wish each of you peace, love, and happiness. And I continue to say my prayers for Jenny L and her family. And I thank everybody for joining in. And we'll see you. I guess tomorrow. We'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow. So cheers.